Thank you. And then, so this is different points that I would like to tackle during this talk. Actually, when thinking about de-escalation, I will mainly concentrate on stopping, because this is where we have the bulk of data. So these are the various questions that I want to address. Why should we stop? What happens when we stop? Can we predict relapse? Who are the good candidates for stopping? And if we stop and we need to retreat, what is the success rate? And I will talk about some future directions. So I could basically stop this talk here, because I will be a key opinion leader from US and maybe from Canada. I will say that based on available efficacy and safety data, there is no good reason to stop. But I think this is too simple, and in clinical practice, stopping is very often considered. Why should we stop? I think we have some safety reasons, some financial reasons, which are very heavy, especially in Europe right now, some specific situation, and also because the patient wants to stop. So we need to be able to answer them. So this is some data looking at the risk of lymphoma. This is a SESAME study associated with azathioprine. And what is very important is a bar in the middle, because as you can see, the risk of lymphoma is increased in patients on current treatment with azathioprine. But as soon as you stop, the risk of lymphoma is going down to the baseline risk. So this is a very important point for safety. There is a huge point about money. And this is an interesting study coming from Netherlands showing that the cost of IBD has shifted in the last year. In the past, the cost was mainly in hospitalization and surgery. But as you can see in green, in University Medical Center and General Hospital, the bulk of the cost of IBD nowadays in Europe, in the Netherlands, is on biological therapy. This is why stopping or de-escalating is very often considered in those countries. And there are also some specific populations. Pregnancy, some women want absolutely to stop. There are some specific situations such as traveling. And finally, this is a patient request. This is the most often asked question in my experience by patients. Doctor, I agree to start this treatment, but when will I be able to stop? So what are the data? We know that most effective strategy in Crohn's disease so far is a combination treatment. This is why I will concentrate on this specific situation. Let's take patients who is on combination therapy. And let's talk about de-escalation. There are three possible scenarios. Either stop the immunosuppressive drug, stop the anti-TNF, and stop all meds. There are no data about patients on combo stopping everything. So I will just talk about the two first situations. Of note, all anti-TNF stop studies have been done with infliximab and adalimumab, and nearly all data in Crohn's disease. There are very few data in ulcerative colitis. So in a patient who is on combo, what will happen if you stop azathioprine? So this is a summary of the literature, and the bottom line is that we don't have so many good data. The quality of the studies is quite low, and actually there are only 2 randomized controlled trials. And most of the data are from retrospective study. And as I mentioned earlier, there is just one study in ulcerative colitis. So I will mainly comment on the best available study so far, which is a study from Leuven, the EMID study, which was an open-label, randomized controlled trial. So patients who had a controlled disease for more than 6 months after the start of infliximab plus azathioprine were randomized to continue or discontinue the immunosuppressor. 80 patients were randomized, and the follow-up was 104 weeks. The primary endpoint was a proportion of patients who required decrease in infliximab dosing interval or had to stop. And there were some important secondary endpoints, such as trough level, safety, and endoscopic healing. So this is a result of this study, and basically there was no difference between groups. When you look at the need to decrease the interval or stop, 60% in the group who continues, 55% in the group who stop the immunosuppressor. And you have the Kaplan-Meier curve for no need for early rescue treatment and no need to discontinue infliximab, and it's very clear that the two curves are parallel. I want to bring a word of caution. This is not an equivalence trial. This is a failed superiority trial. The hypothesis of the author was that continuing will do better than stopping. And so we can't conclude from this study that those two strategies are equivalent. What we can only say is that continuing is not better than stopping. The second point of caution is this. When they look at CRP level and trough levels through week 104, even though there was, once again, no clinical difference, as you can see, the patient who stopped the immunomodulators had higher CRP and lower trough levels. And we know that this lower trough level may be associated in the long term with a higher risk of relapse. Unfortunately, we don't have long-term data in this cohort. So this is a summary of all the other studies, so looking at discontinuing or continuing the immunosuppressor in patients with combo, and at various times, 7 months, 12, and 24 months. And as you can see, there is obviously no big difference. What about stopping the anti-TNF? This is a summary of the literature again, and as you can see, paucity of data. Only one prospective study. We have the rest of studies are basically retrospective studies. So the only prospective study that is available so far is a study from the JETED, which is called the STORY trial. This was a prospective multicentric cohort study, 115 Crohn patients on combo therapy for at least 1 year and on steroid-free remission for at least 6 months, were all stopped. So there was no control group in this study. All patients stopped infliximab and were followed every 2 months for more than 1 year. The primary endpoint was time to relapse after withdrawal of infliximab, and we wanted to look at predictors associated with a high risk of relapse. This is a global result of the cohort. This is the time to relapse after infliximab was stopped. And as you can see, it doesn't look that good because basically 50% of patients relapse after 1 year. But I think we can notice that most of patients relapse within the first year. And then it looks quite stable, even though the number of patients is low. So maybe there is a subgroup of patients in whom you can stop and will not relapse. So this is a summary of the literature, other data, and basically you can see that it's approximately the same, and 50% of patients, bottom line, will relapse if you stop the biologics in patients on combination treatments. So the glass is either half full or empty. So very important question in clinical practice, can we predict relapse and identify some good candidates for stopping? So if you stop azathioprine, this is a very interesting data coming from the IMID study, so from the Leuven group. If you stop azathioprine, a very important point to consider is the trough level when you will stop. Because just look at the right-hand side of this slide. This is the percentage of patients who were able to continue, who had continued response to infliximab according to trough levels when the immunosuppressor was stopped. So if the trough levels are undetectable, the risk of relapse is very high. But if you have high trough levels, more than 5 in the Leuven experience, when you stop the immunosuppressor, the risk of relapse is basically very low. So I think this is very important to take into account in clinical practice. What about stopping infliximab? Do we have predictors? So this is a story study, and we were able to build some multivariate models and scores through Cox model using multiple imputations method. And on the bottom of this slide, you can see all the risk factors that were associated with a high risk of relapse. Low hemoglobin when you stop the infliximab, high leukocyte counts, high CRP, high calpro, CDIS more than 0, and infliximab trough more than 2. So when you look at the green line at the top, there is a subgroup of patients, approximately 20% of our cohort, who have less than 4 of these deleterious factors, and in whom the risk of relapse is quite low, is less than 20% at 30 months. So in this subgroup, maybe it's possible to stop. And bottom line is that all these patients need to be in deep remission, meaning normal CRP and endoscopic healing. An important point that maybe we didn't pay enough attention to was that predictor of relapse was high trough levels, which looks a little bit paradoxical. But actually, this has been confirmed in a study from Israel. This is a study from Shomron Bonren, looking at patients in deep remission and stopping anti-TNF. And actually, those patients who have very low levels of infliximab, actually the drug was not measurable, didn't relapse. What does that mean? That just means that the remission is not anymore maintained by the biologics, and then you can stop. And other interesting point is that if you stop the biologics in a patient, you may catch the relapse before the biological relapse, before the clinical relapse, and maybe treat the patient very early. This is, once again, from a story. So in patients who stopped infliximab, who had relapser in orange and non-relapser in green. And as you can see, when looking at CRP and calprotectin on the right-hand side, the rise of CRP and calpro precedes the clinical relapse. And for a CRP of 6.1 and calpro of 300, these were the best for prediction of relapse. So if confirmed, this will be very nice, because then you can just follow your patient based on these biomarkers, and then you can predict the relapse and treat before the clinical relapse. So in summary, who are the good candidates for stopping? I think there are a lot of parameters that need to be taken into account. This is a table from a recent review paper that we recently published. I think you need to take into account demographics of the patients, some specific features, treatment history, the current disease status, patient preferences, and for instance, if you look at factors that would favor de-escalation, for instance, young males with a risk of lymphoma, old patients could be in favor of de-escalating, short disease extent, short disease duration, stable therapy with no need for acute treatment or dose escalation, endoscopic healing, biological remission, trough levels, and I spoke about that. This had to be taken into account. And for instance, if there is an history of cancer or serious infections. All those arguments on the left-hand side can be considered to favor de-escalating, while on the other hand, the arguments on the right-hand side, which are the opposite, could be taken into account when you want to continue the drug. So an important point as well, okay, I can stop, but if the patient relapses and if I want to retreat, what will happen? We don't have a lot of data. This is data from STORY. So in STORY, 62% of patients relapsed during the follow-up. 52 were retreated. And the bottom line is that the short-term results look quite good. This is after 3 infusions. 88% were in clinical remission and 98% in clinical response. So retreating was well tolerated, and we had no adverse reaction. We have to be cautious about that because this is short-term data, and the long-term data will be presented at DDW this year. We have some data from Leuven. So this is a Leuven cohort, and where patients were stopped infliximab, and you have the overall response short-term at year 1 and end of follow-up period in Crohn's disease and in ulcerative colitis. So if you consider, for instance, Crohn's, in the short term, 87%, then 72% at 1 year, and 63% at the end of follow-up period. But importantly, they were able to identify, and this is very useful in clinical practice, some predictors of success or failure when you restart infliximab after stopping, so after a long drug holiday. First point is that your patients need to be on immunomodulators. So if you want to restart, you need to reintroduce the immunomodulator. Second, the reason for stopping. If the patient was stopped when he was in clinical remission, this is associated with a higher chance of success. And very importantly, the trough level before the second infusion. If you have good trough levels before the second infusion, more than 2, and no antibodies before the second infusion, then the chance that the drug will work again is much higher. So this is very practical use. So to summarize, I must admit that considering available data, stopping biologics especially is a risky business. But the point is that there are some take-home messages. Clinical remission is not enough to stop. Objective evidence of inflammation, CRP, calpro, endoscopy would be associated with relapse. Those who had a previous difficult and relapsing course are more likely to relapse. Consider using trough levels. I told you about the use of trough level in both situations. Close follow-up using CRP and calpro may allow you to diagnose a preclinical relapse, and eventually stopping should be a personalized decision. So we need to work on this topic. It's very clear that we need much more data, and I'm very happy to say that this is a common effort from ECHO, JETED, and CCFA, which is called the Biocycle Project. So as part of this project, we will ask to doctors, we will ask to patients in US and in Europe what they think about de-escalation. And the heart of the Biocycle project will be this controlled trial where we will take patients on combo who will be randomized to continuing combo, stopping the anti-TNF and restarting if relapse, or stopping the anti-metabolite. And the study has already started, and we have already 10 patients recruited in Europe. And something else that should be explored further is not totally stopping, but maybe de-escalating, decreasing. And I believe this is maybe the most interesting data from the TAXID study. In the TAXID study, so this is dealing with patients who are doing very well on infliximab. They were in remission. And some patients had very high trough level, more than 7. And then they were randomized either to stay at the same infliximab regimen or to decrease or to increase the interval or to decrease the dose of infliximab. And actually, as you can see, there was no difference, meaning that they were able to perform a successful dose de-escalation of patients with supratherapeutic levels whilst retaining disease control. And maybe this is also something that needs to be explored further. Thank you for your attention.